Tell us just really briefly where you went to live. Your first
Okay.
wasn't a home. Where did you live?
Well, we left. We got married that afternoon. We drove back to Ohio because I had to be at work the next morning. So that was our honeymoon. And actually, we didn't have a honeymoon for about 25 or 30 years.
Yeah.
But something even halfway resembled that.
Yeah.
But so we went back to Ohio, and I had an apartment. It was, I can picture the apartment. It was the third story of an old house. It was in the attic. It had been converted into a room. As you got out of the stairs, there was probably no more than between 6 and 8 feet between the stairway and the outside wall. And that was the kitchen. And then there was a dining table. And there was really no living room chairs. They were kitchen chairs. That's all we had to sit in.
Yeah.
And then our bed on the other side of the table.
It was all one room.
Just one big room. There was no bathroom in
The
it.
studio attic.
Studio attic.
And you paid how much, you think?
It's well under $100 a month. I don't remember exactly what it was. I could probably find out because I've always been a record keeper, and I've probably got there's a good chance I would have the records for it if I've got that year upstairs in the attic. But anyway.
And you were working how many hours a week?
Well, then the day we got married, I was just working the 40 hours a week. But it was very shortly after that, I was working as a detailed parts inspector for Ronkin Manufacturing. One of the managers of the department that I was in had a landscaping business, and so he hired me to work with him on weekends. And then he just said, if you go to the night shift, then you can work days for me, and you can work the night shift there and the weekends. So it turned out that for most of that year, when the weather was sufficient, I worked 2 full-time jobs, and I worked weekends on one of them. Hit pretty close to 100 hours every week.
Wow.
Then she worked.
And I worked 40 hours at a shoe department.
Yeah. So.
Now.
Well, I started off in San Diego, California. I was born there. I was there 6 weeks, and then we went back to Illinois.
And your dad was in the
Navy.
In the Navy.
And I have no idea how long we were in Illinois, but then we moved down to Key West, Florida for a year, and a year in Miami, Florida, and then a year in Memphis, Tennessee. I off and on, before that, was in foster homes in an aunt's house in Hillsborough, Illinois. The foster home was in Missouri. And don't know how long, that was, but it was back and forth. And then we moved up to Illinois, Hillsborough, Illinois. And I lived in 3 different places there from the time I was in 3rd grade to when I was in high school.
And you lived with who? Was this your grandmother?
My grandmother,
okay.
Of my dad's side.
Okay.
Yeah. The one house was interesting that we lived in. It was an apartment, and we had a store underneath. So it was like a walkout basement type thing, where the one side was where you went into the store, but when you'd go on the other side, it was our home, and it was a duplex. And that's a whole nother story. But it was interesting. And then we moved to Roundtree Street and to Hunt Avenue in Hillsborough.
So then that brings Brother Lewey into the story now. So after being married, and I love how you guys say Illinois. That's how rural people in Illinois say Illinois.
Yeah.
So from Illinois, tell us where you went from there.
Well, for our wedding day, we left straight for Ohio, Middletown, Ohio, and we were there for about a year in a couple different places. And then I went in the Army, and we went back to Illinois before I went actually to training. And then I went to Fort Polk, Louisiana, and she caught up with me about 2/3 of the way through basic training. And then she met me down there and lived at a place off post. and then someplace on post. I don't remember exactly where.
The guest house.
And then from there, that was basic training. I went straight to flight school. Went from an E1 to an E2, and then as soon as I got to flight school, I was an E5 right off the bat. And so that's what we went through as flight school. We was there for a year, and that's where part of our conversion started, was there. And she lived in 2 or 3 different places. From there, we went to Fort Rucker, Alabama. Lived a couple places there. We was there for another year. Went back to Illinois, and then to Savannah, Georgia. Savannah, Georgia was only like 4 or 6 weeks. It was just advanced conversion to training for flying Cobras rather than Hueys. From there, I went to Vietnam. She went back to Illinois.
You were in Vietnam for
a year, minus a couple weeks in the Philippines for some escape and evasion training.
And a week in Hawaii.
And a week in Hawaii. I got to see her for a whole week in Hawaii. 5 days. And then we came back to Fort Rucker and served there for a couple of years, almost 3 years, 2 or 3 years. And then we got out, moved back to Illinois, waiting for school to start. I went to college at University of Illinois in Champaign, Urbana. Lived in Champaign, schools in Urbana. That was a 4-year stay with a couple locations there. Then we went to Colorado. Overall, we were there for 10 years, but that included a 2-year stay in Saudi Arabia.
and what part of Colorado was that?
Lakewood, Colorado. Denver Federal Center is where I was working, and I flew out of Buckley Field when I was in the Guard there. From Colorado, and of course a stay in Saudi Arabia, and a little short stint to Austria, but we really didn't live there. Then we moved to Clackamas, Oregon, and we was there from 85 to 91, and we sold our house and then started to build this house that we're living in now.
And you built it yourself?
Built the house. We lived in a little 18-foot trailer out there, 5 of us, for a year while we built, almost 2 years while we built the house.
And so you not only built the house, you
designed it and built it. So, and we've lived here with the exception of a couple of stints. We went to Austria and we went on a mission. So Austria in 2009, I think it was, and our mission in 14 and 15.
And where did you serve that?
That was in Washington, D.C. So we lived in Washington, D.C. for that period. Then back here again. And we'll be here until who knows when.
Hopefully a long time.
Yeah, hopefully.
And you've been in this home since?
Well, we moved in
1992,
so we moved in.
So 28
So this has
years
been
ago.
our home. We haven't always lived in it, but it's been our home, for permanent home for that period of time.
What a great story.